We are in a hole. We're always in a hole at this time of year. Right now, we're about $65,000 down on our budget. But we just knew that this was kingdom money. At the time that initial $1,000 was given, the church literally had its bills posted on a bulletin board downstairs and was asking congregants to pick up a bill and pay it. That was the context for giving the $1,000 in the first place. So here we are, 35 years later, and we've got a hole in our budget, and there's no way we can face our forebearers and keep that money. We had to put it out there.
So when that $1,000 was given, this church had less than nothing.
Yes, that's right, because we were not able to make our monthly bills at that point. That's right.
And so you didn't even cross your mind. You said you were thinking this is money we're going to use somehow.
Oh, yeah. It didn't cross my mind that we would keep it. But what did cross my mind is how are we going to use it well, right?
Tell me about the announcement. Could you describe that scene, so to speak, that Sunday morning when you stood up and announced to the congregation that they were each going to have $500?
Yeah. Well, can I back up and kind of give the
Sure.
framework for that? Because on 1.6 million, a tithe would be 160,000. And it became really clear to me that we wanted people to have skin in the game on where this money was going to go, where this big amount was going to go. And one way of doing that would be to piece off that tithe, the 10%, and give it directly to people and tell them, this is the master's money, go and do the master's business. So on that Sunday, there's not many people that knew about it. Our board knew about it because they had to sign off on it. Our staff knew about it. And I was sweating bullets because when I say we're behind in our budget, we're taking some staff cuts in January. I mean, we're behind in our budget. And it was September 7th, the first Sunday of September. The church was packed, and I got up into the pulpit and started talking about the parable of the talents and this wonderful parable of generosity that Jesus tells, and then told them about the windfall from Matron Village, 1.6 million, and that their board had decided that 160,000 was going to be given out to all of them. And they just sat there. They didn't say a word. They didn't. I mean, it was like stone-faced. So I'm up there. It's a chilly place up there on the pulpit, So I'm up there, and I think maybe they didn't hear me. So I just said it again. And by the time I had said it again, there were people who were starting to cry. There were people who were turning to their neighbor and whispering. And then you could kind of feel it all at once, like the magnitude of what we were doing. And it wasn't me doing it. It was like we were all doing it together. We were about to just release more money than we had ever had. This 160,000, more money than we'd ever had, like in our hands, right? We were going to release it to 320 people, and they were going to spend it however they felt the Lord led them to.
And did you say something positive, or I think that was in the paper, but maybe you didn't actually word it.
I didn't use it that way. No, I just said that these are resources of the master. These are God's resources, and God's invested them in us. So go and do something. Whatever the Lord tells you to do it. And that's been, of course, realized in 1,000 different ways.
Can you give me a few examples of some of the things that?
Well, sure. Yeah, sure. The very first story that came back was from a woman who works here with hungry and homeless people. She's a secretary in the Loop, and for years she has watched her girlfriend's son descend into schizophrenia. And she's prayed with her, she's cried with her, all this stuff. But she decided immediately she was going to take the $500 and make a donation to an organization for mental health of adult children, and she was going to make it in her friend's name. And that was powerful. That was the very first thing. Again, early on, an elderly woman in the congregation came to me, one of those saints. She has about 4 teeth left in her head. She's raised her children. She's now raising her grandchildren. And she lives in a CHA building, a subsidized building right around the corner here. And she came to me, she said, my niece was one of the first to graduate from college, and I want to give this to her. Do you think that's okay? Like, definitely. And the pleasure this woman had in giving more money than she had ever held to her niece. I mean, it was just powerful. So those were immediate stories. You know, we had big idea stories. People who were giving into an Ebola clinic in the Congo in honor of one of their colleagues who had been in Uganda years ago and had contracted Ebola there. Folks who were doing after-school literacy